Hello there folks, I'm the Lon Chaney Reviewer, and welcome to Silent Film Saturday episode number 25. Counting down the episodes that you guys voted for, this is the final one of this series, 1928's The Passion of Joan of Arc. Before I get any further, I just want to give a shout out to Samantha Rhodes. She was the only person who, I guess, wanted to comment on the fact that, well, I posted a link to the Nostalgia Critics review of Les Miserables, the 2012 release, that is, and it makes reference to the performance in Passion of Joan of Arc. This is the Criterion edition of the film, spine number 62, and supplemental features include, obviously, a gorgeous new transfer, Richard Einhorn's Voices of Light, that's the score that's supplied with a choral and orchestral work performed by the vocal group Anonymous 4, soloist Susan Naruki, and the Radio Netherlands Philharmonic Choir. Audio essay by Casper Thijberg, and is a Dreyer scholar from University of Copenhagen. An extensive production design archive, a history of Passion's many versions with clips, audio excerpts with the star's daughter, Helene Falconetti, an essay by Richard Einhorn on the Joan of Arc, and the Voices of Light, plus a video essay on the music's production. Voices of Light libretto booklet, including the medieval text, using Einhorn's composition. This film is about the trials against Joan of Arc. You know, she's captured by the English, and they basically want her to recant everything she ever said about God. How she's heard God in her head, she saw archangels and things like that, and she was fighting for God and all that sort of stuff. They want her to sign a confession that she never said it, otherwise she gets burned at the stake. What's noticeable about this film is that there are a lot of close-ups. Yeah. This might make viewers uncomfortable, especially if you watched a lot of silent films before this one that customarily, I wouldn't say had a lot of close-ups. They would probably have a lot more like medium shots or establishing shots. This film has a lot of close-ups, but used well, in the sense that it makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes you feel anger towards the people that are persecuting Joan of Arc. And this also leads us to one of silent cinema's finest performances by Falconetti. Falconetti in this film, as Joan of Arc, is breathtaking. Not just one of the best silent film performances, but just one of the best performances, period. I think it was Roger Ebert who said something to the effect like this: you don't know the face of silent cinema until you've seen Falconetti's Joan of Arc. Especially in a medium that is driven by visual images. I think that's one of the greatest pieces of praise you could ever give any performance. And that speaks volumes to her, because, you know, she really suffered for this production. This was like her only movie, and there's scenes where she looks absolutely miserable, and you can just read her pain. She, tears in her eyes, her face doesn't look remotely attractive. I don't mean that as a detriment against her, but that was intended that way, because you were meant to say, wow, they really punished her. They really did things to the people persecuting her did things to her. And it really makes you feel sympathy for this main character who's trying to fight for her beliefs while at the same time dealing with the fact that she's only a human being. And it's really powerful and emotional. Even for someone like me who is not very religious, it was very powerful seeing someone try to deal with the fact, deal with their religion in that manner. Also, the other characters in the film, the persecutors, don't look attractive at all. They look like mean people. They don't look attractive at all, and their close-ups are meant to disturb you and meant to make you not like them because they're persecuting Joan of Arc. And I would say this is not a film that you should be watching as your first silent film, maybe one of your later ones. It took me a while before I got to Passion of Joan of Arc. I'd watched a few silent films before that, and this was a tough watch. Because you're more accustomed to silent films sometimes having a different sort of energy to them, whereas this film, there's an overwhelming sense of dread and hopelessness in certain scenes. And not up until the end of the movie, where there's a title card talking about where how Joan of Arc did after the events of the film. It's just hopeless. It just, like I said, a sense of dread. And the other thing with this film is the Voices of Light soundtrack by Richard Einhorn, and that soundtrack is gorgeous. It really works for the themes of the film. Orchestral score, choir, singing. It's very religious feeling, and yeah, like you're in a sanctuary of some sort. Now, you may have noticed that I said a beautiful, gorgeous print, and this is a gorgeous print, especially when you consider two things. One, this DVD was released in the late 90s. This DVD is 14 years old. It's by number 62 in the Criterion Collection. Still hasn't received a Blu-ray upgrade from the Criterion Collection, but I think that's because of rights issues. I would really like to see a Blu-ray from the Criterion Collection, however. But the other thing is, this film was discovered in a Norwegian mental institution. This film's history is complicated, to say the least. The film was destroyed, but recut and re-released in different forms, and they butchered the film entirely, much shorter, truncated versions. And then in 1981, it was discovered, like I said, in this Norwegian mental institution. If I said film institution earlier, I apologize, but it was discovered there, and wow. And you think about that, that's really miraculous. That's a stroke of faith that this film in this version exists. So that alone warrants you seeing this movie. I'm not going to say buy it, because I don't want you to waste your money and say this movie's depressing and then I hate you Lon Chaney reviewers. I hate when I say that. Buy this movie. No, check it out. Check it out somehow, because this film is fantastic in the sense that it's a great movie. Is it one of my favorite silent movies? No, it isn't. But it is an amazing, amazing accomplishment in terms of the images, the set design, the camera, the performance by Falconetti alone. One of the 5 or 10 greatest silent performances ever. And this was like her only movie role, which is impressive. So that's all I really have to say about this film. Check it out. Highly recommend it, and I'll see you next week when I check out F.W. Murnau's Faust. See you next week.